Welcome to the webinar today about is software testing for you? This is an important question, whether you are actually still within your career as a student, whether you are actually working as a different role and want to become a tester. So this is perfect for you. And we've actually got really interesting speakers today here who will help you sort of think about this role and give you the confidence that, yes, this is for you. So just before we start, I just wanted to introduce myself to all of you. So my name's Lavina Ramchandani. I've been in the software testing world for over 10 years now, and it's an exciting world. Loads to learn. I will say that I fell into it, but it was a good fall because there's so much to learn as a software tester. There's a good mixture of both business acumen and technical acumen as well. And one of the speakers here today was actually one of my ex-colleagues as well. So it would be really good to see her thoughts on this as well. So without further ado, I'll get started with our first speaker, Gabby Trotter, who's actually a recruiter for Searchability. She is quite passionate about hiring testers for quite a lot of companies. And today she will tell you all about her journey and hopefully support you with any sort of future roles that she has for you. So over to you, Gabby, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Let me just try and get my presentation up. Just bear with me. Okay, so I can't see it and you, so can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see a screen. Yeah, I can see a screen.
Perfect. So thank you so much for inviting me to speak this evening. I'm obviously here to speak to you all about a potential career in software testing. So I just wanted to start with a little bit of an introduction about me. So as Lavina said, I am not a tester, I am a recruiter. So I head up the software testing recruitment team for Searchability UK. And Searchability are a tech recruitment company. So I've been doing this for 9 years now, and I love to sort of get involved in community events like this one. And I also co-organise the Ministry of Testing Manchester events as well, which is basically a community of like-minded testers that get together sort of monthly, bi-monthly, in person in Manchester to listen to different talks about testing and just to network, really. As well as that, I am an advocate for women in tech, and I feel very passionately about working both on the candidate side, encouraging people into the tech industry, and also working with my clients to better encourage how they can get more women and just more minorities in general into roles in tech. So obviously later you're going to hear from two experienced professionals who are actually doing the job, but I thought I would give you more of an insight in terms of getting into testing and things from a bit more of a recruitment angle. So what I'm specifically going to talk about is why testing is a good career choice, a little bit of info about the average market salaries, different types of testing roles, and a couple of tips in terms of how to get your first role. So firstly, why is software testing a good career choice? So it's a large and growing subsection of a sector, tech, which is obviously thriving. Right now on LinkedIn alone, there is 253 live software testing roles. Although it's been a little bit of a quieter year, and I know quite a turbulent year in general, job-wise and within tech, it has generally been my experience in the 9 years that I've recruited for testing that a good tester will always be able to find work, and there is always a lot of companies that are interested in getting that talent on board. Testing as well can be a great gateway into tech from other sectors like customer support or retail. Some of the best testers that I've placed or hired for have come from that customer service or retail background, maybe gone into something support and then found a passion for testing. And it's a great way to sort of get yourself into tech. I know it can be quite daunting trying to get that first role in a new sector. As I touched upon a little bit at the start as well, so you can see the sort of gender diversity figures down there. Like much of tech, unfortunately, there is not an equal number of males and females working in the industry. So something I am passionate about is helping more women into tech roles, into testing roles. And again, as I said, educating my clients on how, as part of the hiring process, they can be more inclusive to attract more females and, as I say, minorities in general to work for them. And I think we all have a responsibility, whether you're a recruiter or a hiring manager, you know, to address these imbalances and see and do what we can to help, really. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview for people thinking about getting into testing, just an idea of the kind of salaries that you can earn. Obviously, this will vary a lot company to company and location to location. So do take it with somewhat of a pinch of salt, but we do use various different tools to help us sort of track market average salaries. So as you can see, software testing can be a really fruitful and well-paid profession. So this is a kind of idea of the salary different roles in testing pay. As is usual with most roles, salaries in the capital, so salaries in London, are going to be marginally higher. But now, because of remote working options, it is possible to get that higher London salary and sometimes not live in London. So that's something nice that's come out of the increase in remote working. I wanted to break down a couple of different testing roles as well. So you can see a few different job titles on the screen there. Now, as you can see from this slide, there are many different roles and different names for roles in testing. So when applying for jobs, you will often see the same role with the same responsibilities, but it could be called many different things. Really important not to let this put you off when you're applying for jobs. It's quite common in tests that there is just a lot of different names for the same sort of thing. However, one key difference worth noting is the need for either functional/manual testing skills or someone who wants to be an automation tester. And the other guys might touch upon this a little bit more later, but automation testing essentially will undoubtedly require some level of coding experience. So it's worth figuring out which sort of path you're maybe targeting if you're wanting to break into testing. If you are thinking about going down the automation route, there's some really useful free online resources. There is something called the Test Automation University, where you can work your way through courses just to get a bit of base level knowledge. And Ministry of Testing as well has tons of different resources on there around automation testing, API, functional, anything you can think of really. And again, as you can see with the titles there, like many other roles in tech, there is sort of clear progression paths for you as well. So whether you want to go into a test lead or a manager role, which would encompass a bit more people management and line management, or if you don't feel comfortable managing others, there is routes such as like a principal tester where you just become a subject matter expert and you're, really sort of at the top level of your technical skills, but you don't necessarily want to manage others. So lots of different routes that you can look to go down. So I wanted to include some tips for those of you who are maybe trying to get your first role in testing. Some of these might seem super obvious, but you'd be surprised how many CVs we see that kind of miss some really basic key skills and information you would need. So it's really important to always include, obviously, your name, your postcode, and your contact details, so people can assess if your location suits their role and they've got a way to reach out to you. A short, focused opening statement, particularly as well if you don't have any commercial experience. This can be a great place for you to really give a bit of context as to why you're applying for a role and what transferable skills you might have for that. In terms of skills, include all the technical skills/tools you have used and any you're currently in the process of learning. I would say on this note as well, though, please don't list any technical tools that you haven't used personally. We see this quite often where someone might put on a tool or a certain buzzword, but it's not something they're personally experienced with, and then that can cause issues down the line in interview processes if you're obviously the client is expecting you to have that experience as per your CV and you haven't actually used that. So just being careful with the information you include. Always put your work history in chronological order, include the job title, a short role description, and if you can, one key achievement in each role you've held. Again, even if this is, trying to get into tech and your other roles haven't been, it's still important to list those achievements and see if you can mention anything that's transferable from what you're doing now into a software testing role. Little extras as well, it's nice to mention any hobbies you have and definitely anything you do outside of work for the test community. So attending events like this, being an organizer for them, perhaps a speaker. A couple of other things that I wanted to note that I haven't necessarily included on the slide is I would definitely implore people to not use too many images or pictures on their CVs. So logos, images of themselves, this can pull through quite badly when clients use tracking systems. So it's much better to just have, a plain CV just with plain font and text. And also, if you include personal details, things like your date of birth, marital status, a picture of yourself, unfortunately, that can promote unconscious bias in hiring managers. So if you're not familiar with that term, unconscious bias, also known as implicit biases, are the underlying attitudes and stereotypes that people unconsciously attribute to another person or a group. So I'm suggesting sort of things like ageism or sexism, things that the hiring manager might not even know that they are being biased of. If you include those details that aren't essential, you could be unfortunately facing that additional barrier. And last but not least, spell check. And this is, like I said, you would think it would be obvious, but it's one that's sort of very neglected. And I would suggest obviously using a spell checker, but also having a friend or a family member proofreading it for you as well. Hiring managers, particularly in software testing, really, really care about attention to detail. Now, if you're trying to break into testing or any new sector, investing a bit of time into your personal brand could really help you. Now, personal branding is basically the practice of marketing yourself as a person as a brand or a persona. Social media is increasingly being used by professionals who are passionate about what they do, who are wanting to share their knowledge and thoughts with others. So there's so many different reasons as to why it could be useful to invest into your personal brand. But in the world of job hunting, it's quite important to know sort of the stats and figures around the power of social media. So 79% of job seekers use social media in their job search in the last year. Now, social media could mean a couple of different platforms. Quite often it will mean LinkedIn in this case, but people also network on platforms like X, formerly Twitter, Slack. There's a lot of different communities out there. If you did want to invest a little bit of time into your personal brand to enhance your career in software testing, it's worth having to think about the following points that I've got on the screen here. So, who's your audience? Who are you trying to catch the eye of? What is your unique personal brand? So what's something that is unique about yourself that not any other job seeker would have? It could be a certain type of experience you have in a sector, or it could be the fact that you are really good at mentoring people. Take a bit of time to think about that, as well as your values and passions. Post and share content on whatever platform you choose to be present on. Get creative and share your perspective on sort of trending news and trending tech topics. And join in conversations. Don't just post content out there and not engage with others. That networking is where you're really going to see the value. I also really encourage people to check their digital footprint as well. So by that, I mean a lot of hiring managers may well sort of Google your name, see if you are on any of these social platforms, particularly LinkedIn, but ahead of an interview. Just make sure anything that comes up is things that you would want them to see as opposed to not want them to see. And just get connecting with really relevant people in the sector. You can sort of find one person, whether it be a recruiter like myself or someone that's really active in the community like Andy, see who they talk to, see who they follow, and try and build out some connections. I think it's really important to find those communities that testers operate in. And when you find yourself in your first role, they'll be really helpful people to sort of guide you through your career as well. So there's events like this. Obviously, the group this is run by is an excellent place to start. I'm a big fan of the Ministry of Testing community as well. Putting yourself out there as much as possible will definitely improve your career prospects. Now, what I wanted to include as well is my contact details on the screen here, so feel free to screenshot them or take a picture. If anyone wants to follow up and get any additional advice around job hunting from me, or for me to take a look at their CV and see if I can provide any pointers, I am more than happy to do that. And as I say, I'm really sort of passionate about giving back to the community. So please do not be afraid to reach out. I would love to hear from you. And that is all from me. Has anyone got any questions?
Thank you so much, Gabby. That was really, really useful with a lot of information, good nuggets of information for people hearing today. I'm more than happy to take some questions, and anyone who wants to sort of unmute themselves and ask a question or two to Gabby, feel free, or put it on the chat and I can ask.
Just make sure. Has my screen got? Yes, I've stopped sharing now, haven't I? Yeah, it all sort of froze in 1 second then, but no, that seems to have gone back to normal. Like I say, obviously, you know, if you don't want to give a question now, I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations too.
Yeah, good evening all. I just wanted to mention that, Gabby, I've sent you a request on the LinkedIn. So when you have a moment, please add me in.
Yes.
And I just wanted to discuss further that what would be the best approach to find a new role.
Yes, and would that be new role as in you've not worked in testing before, or are you already a tester?
No, I've been working in testing for nearly 4 to 5 years, and I finished my contract on 31st of October.
Yes.
So now I've started looking for new role.
Thing. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm happy to go into more detail offline as well. But as a general consensus, everything that I've sort of said there, I know that at the moment the market is a little bit more quiet. So when you are just looking in the same places, the job boards, indeed, it can be disheartening to not see that many new vacancies. Really try and network and lean on people in the community as much as possible to help recommend you for roles, ask if there's anything coming up in their organisation, see if there's anything that you wouldn't normally just come across on a job board that someone can suggest you for. Contracting particularly, you know, it's very much your network is going to really help to sort of push your career forward. But yes, I'll have a look. I get, as you can imagine, a lot of requests, but I'll dig through and I'll make sure I accept that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a question from Waleed on the chat. He's asking, what's the most demanding field these days? Is it a QA, lead, automation, or a mobile tester?
So there's not one sort of answer that fits all. There's obviously a lot of variation of roles out there, but there's a couple of key things that I guess I've seen an increase in that might be worth keeping an eye on. So automation, yes, that is still, you know, very much a growing aspect of testing and a very in-demand skill set. Particularly, we're seeing a lot of demand for automation testers that have used tools like Cypress or Playwright with JavaScript. And we're also seeing quite a few mobile testing roles, and there's actually not that many people specifically focusing on that aspect. So you might do a bit of mobile, but not necessarily a mobile expert. And I think that's a good niche that, you know, it's not sort of oversaturated. There's probably need for more people with that skill set. So 2 things there that might be worth having a little look into.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Any-
I've got a question.
Yep,
Sorry, I've got
Andy?
one more question. There was someone else, yeah.
After you.
The question that was asked just reminded me about cybersecurity. What would you say about the roles currently for cybersecurity?
Yeah, so we've actually got a dedicated team here that recruits for security roles. So unless it's testing specific, it's not necessarily something that I get too involved in. But at our Ministry of Test in Manchester, we've had a couple of security related talks recently, and it seems like that again is quite a growing field and a growing requirement for testers to be very security conscious and sort of weave that into their role as well. So yeah, again, something that I think will only grow further and further.
I've got a question, if that's okay, please.
Yes.
Yes.
So, Gabby, really good presentation and very insightful.
Thank you.
I'll probably be asking more questions as well after tonight as well. But one question I do have now is, if somebody's looking to develop things like security testing and accessibility testing, or testing as API testing as part of the skill set to help hone the skills and stuff, are there any specific resources or any specific online courses that I could do to help me get more experience in that at all, please?
Yeah, so this is something that a lot of people ask. So they maybe want to do a different aspect of testing that they can't necessarily just do as part of their day-to-day job because it's just not involved in it. How do they sort of balance having their job but upskilling? And it does mean, unfortunately, that you do have to use a little bit of your personal time, but it's definitely worth obviously investing back into yourself. So again, they're sort of my go-to for these things, but there genuinely is so many resources on the Ministry of Testing platform that would be a good place to start. And then you quite often will maybe see, okay, this person wrote a blog about API testing. They're clearly very knowledgeable. I'm going to find and connect with them because the chances are they'll have a lot more content around that. The obvious sort of platforms like your Udemy and, as I say, Test Automation University are also available. But if you're wanting to do it initially without, maybe paying for a course, it's great to just look at people that are, excelling in that area of testing and see if there's anything you can learn from just following them or reaching out to them.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for your question, Andy. And we've got one more from Sagar. Do you think achieving ISTQB certifications would increase your chances of getting into software testing?
So I would say it is not as required or as popular, maybe should I say, than it was when I first started my career 9 years ago. We'd quite often see on job specs that was a requirement that you would need to have. I've got sort of two answers for this. If you're an experienced tester, I don't think you need to worry about doing it. I think your experience and your skills, that's what people will want to see on your CV and when they speak to you. However, I still personally feel if you're wanting to break into the industry and you've got zero commercial experience, any certification, any course, I think is going to help because it just shows that you have gone that extra mile to at least kickstart your learning. So yeah, if you're asking that as someone who wants to get into testing, I would probably say it is worth doing.
Thank you. And one last one. What are the benefits of being a tester?
Oh, that's a good one, and probably one that maybe Andy might be better to explain. But I would say, just from my point of view as a recruiter, as I say, it's a great career path where I think, although job stability may vary company to company, it's tech is a sector that's going nowhere. If anything, it's getting bigger and bigger. So I think it's definitely a good career path to sort of invest into, and I think a good way to have a really sort of fruitful career.
I think with testing, and Millie, would you like to answer this question as well? Would you like to go first, or would you like me to?
You want to go first, Andy? Go on.
Okay. So I think the benefits for me for being a tester, I like being creative and I like playing around with things. And with testing, you can get to break stuff, but you get other people to fix it for you. I've had days where I've had field days where I've found a lot of bugs in systems. Some really sort of like critical ones. Where one example was that in an organisation I worked with some years ago, I actually managed to delete myself as a user, then try and log back in again as well.
Well, that's quite cool.
So, and another one was a password reset. Password reset functionality not working just before a live release as well. So it was about 6 o'clock, about 5:30 in the evening, just before I was about to clock off for the evening. I found this bug. I said to the manager, "Hey, I found this bug. This release will have to be put back a bit until this gets fixed. Sorry about this." His response the next day, good spot for finding it. So that was good. But as well, it's you get to learn how the business works. You get to learn how different software systems works. You could also, with testing, playing around with different browsers, different mobile apps as well. I mean, when I've done mobile testing, there are some functionalities in Android which don't always work well with the Apple iPhone and vice versa. So it's a career where you can grow how you see fit and how you want to as well. So if you want to do coding, automation might be a good thing for you, or even sort of penetration testing if you're wanting to learn a bit more about cybersecurity and security testing as well, it is you can evolve yourself as much as you like. I hope that helps, Millie.
Yeah, I was going to second that actually. So testers actually are at a very unique, advantageous position because you get to sort of see a lot of different facets of an organization. You work closely with the business users or business analysts or product owners to understand what the requirement is. You work with the developers, you work with the operational team to kind of understand, well, how do you deploy stuff, for example, or again, like, just trying to understand what other systems talk to your main system if you're looking at it at a regression or a broader perspective. But one of the things, and I will cover it in my session, is when you are trying to kind of make a decision, or do I try this or do that? Testing for me was one of the key reasons why I really fell in love with, technology itself. So if you want to try, for the first time a technology role, testing is a brilliant way of doing it. And like Andy mentioned, I think it is, there's so much variety out there and so many ways to pivot. You can try, going into detailed analysis, you can go into coding, you can even, I've known a lot of people who've moved into development, who started in testing, who've become DevOps engineers, for example, and gone into project management. I myself am now in delivery, have gone into business analysis, so they, or technical analysis because they like the analysis side of it more. But it gives you a good grounding, I think, because you get a good understanding of, well, what is it? Go back to the WE model, right? What are the requirements and what is it that the business is trying to achieve versus, well, how has the implementation been done?
Absolutely. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much. I think we've got a couple of questions on the chat as well. I'll try answer some of them, and I guess Gabby and Andy, you can answer them, and Millie as well. So would like to move to our next speaker now. So I would like to welcome Millie to take the stage. And just before Millie starts, I'd like to sort of give a little introduction about Millie. So Millie is the head of solutions delivery at Chaucer Group. And of course, as I said in the introduction earlier, myself, so me and Millie have worked together at Scott Logic in the past as well. So that was really an interesting place to work, and I met loads of people. So I thought about Millie before organizing this. So I really wanted her to be here, especially because she's done different things as a tester and then gone into a different route, and then more than that as well, with studies and all that as well. So we want to sort of hear, how do you get all of that? How do you get the time for all of it and the opportunities that come with it? So whenever you're ready, Millie, feel free to share your screen.
All right. Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen. There should only be a single slide.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to move this to the side. Sorry, it's just I've got different windows everywhere. So I only have one slide, and what I'm going to do is kind of give you a brief potted history of my career, and how I've made some decisions along my career, and whether I thought they were good or not, and what prompted me to kind of move in the direction I have moved. So I don't know, what backgrounds you come from. So I was born and brought up in India, and again, India is culturally a very conservative society. And generally, so I come from a state called Kerala in the south, and it was very common back in those days when kids were born my age in the 70s and 80s, and you either become a doctor or an engineer. That's it. Those are your career paths, right? Anything else is kind of like a frowned upon. No, you're becoming a doctor or an engineer. Anyway, so I fell into engineering, not necessarily because I chose it. But I enjoyed it. I got a job in campus, so I joined IBM in Bangalore. So our title actually said software engineer, but it was the course was delayed, and I came into an odd batch, and I was sat on the bench, and I fell into testing a lot, like Lavina was saying. I'm pretty much sure that a lot of people don't choose testing as a career; you kind of fall into it. Now there are more people who are aware of it, but back in those days, software testing was not even known as a career choice. Anyway, I fell into it and I absolutely loved it. My first project was the IBM browser that was based on the Mozilla project. Then I moved on to working on operating systems that IBM built. But in those days, you could, and I was like a system administrator for lots of different servers, Unix, HP, UX, AIX, you name it. So you would basically start from scratch, install stuff, and then get the whole regression pack, which was automated stuff in really old-fashioned language called Rex, if anybody's ever heard of it. But anyway, so that is kind of what got me really loving it, because I understood the technology side of things, and I started thinking, right, I can see how different applications interact with the different layers of the operating system, and then the networking layers, and how the messaging works and everything else, and it fascinated me. And I kind of thought, well, this is brilliant. Just now I get the big picture of how software works. And I kind of thought that was it. That is, that's like the breadth of how much there could be to learn. But I was always eager for more. The next step was, after marriage, I kind of came to UK with my husband, and went for a couple of interviews and got my first job here in Regent Street in a small boutique consultancy company, or software company called Nomad Software. They built banking software. I believe that their software is still used by some of the Eastern European banks. Got taken over by FIS Global. Anyhow, so it was quite a cultural shock, because I came from a really huge company into a really small. There were only 52 people when I joined Nomad. It was a short stint, and I still remember in my interview, after I got offered the job and I joined, he basically said, I wasn't sure whether you'd be able to fit in. And I asked him, why do you say that? And he said, well, you just came from India, and a couple of the guys in the team swear a lot. And I just laughed. I said, what do you mean? They use F word a lot. And I said, oh, no, that word is used very commonly back in India as well. So I'm like, don't worry about it. So there's a lot of, I guess, again, unconscious bias is a little bit like how Sophie mentioned before. So that was very interesting. And I think I didn't stay a long time in Nomad, sadly. I really enjoyed it over there. But I moved to another company, and it was more a choice I made because it was closer to home. So I lived in Kent. I still live in Kent, actually. And I wanted to start a family. So I said, well, actually, I need to make sure I'm living or working somewhere close by. So that was one of my key decisions, to find a job closer to home. And I joined as a senior tester. And very shortly after that, I got promoted to becoming a tech lead in CAF. And actually, I spent my longest career, or part of my career, 8.5 years in CAF. Now, I've put it over here because I think it was another pivot for me, because that was the first time I moved away from a software or a technology company into a company that used technology. So IT was a department, software, was used for other things, the services or products that company did, completely different. And it allowed me to see how actually, it's not just one tool or one software that a business uses. A business uses a combination of several of these, either tightly coupled or loosely coupled, to actually, perform what they perform and operate and make money out of it. That fascinated me, actually. I kind of ended up doing a lot of different roles over there under the hood. I was a CAB manager, I was a change manager, release manager, a business analyst, because I did gap analysis for one of the key transformation programs that they were having. As again, all kind of under my technical lead umbrella. But when I came back after my second maternity leave, which I actually took the full 1 year for, my role changed. And I was offered a slightly different role, which I took and I kind of did for a while, but it wasn't, I didn't enjoy it. It was less testing, and it was more like system support. But I knew all the systems really well. I, probably knew it way better than some of the developers there. So they would come and ask me, well, hang on a second, I'm seeing this error. And I'd say, well, go and look at that table. It's this particular component that's causing the error. Or go and look at the logs over here. And so they kind of, they I think they did value me. But I said, I'm getting bored. I don't like this. And they couldn't offer me anything else. So I kind of wanted to go into a management role. And they said, oh, you don't have any management experience. And I thought, well, that's funny. So how am I going to suddenly get this management experience unless someone gives me this opportunity? Anyway, so I was a lead, and I did know how to manage people, not maybe line manage, but I did know how to kind of manage people. And so for me, the next pivot was almost like, well, okay, I want to be a manager. I just, how difficult can that be? And I remember my then manager saying, why do you want to do that, Millie? You're really good, technically. Why would you want to do that? And I said, it's just the assumption people have made that, I won't be good at it. That's kind of like, I want to prove you wrong. And that's kind of how I made my next decision. I said, well, that's it. I'm going to move and become a manager. Again, I went for a couple of interviews. I got offered 2 jobs, and I took the one that was, again, closest to home. Funnily enough, that company I joined, Dig, was right across the road from CAF. So I joined over there, and I kind of thought, this is it. I've achieved what I wanted to do. Became a manager, and it was a small team to start with. But anyway, and at first, I really didn't enjoy it. And I thought, oh my God, have I made the wrong decision? I should have just stuck with the numbers and the facts. And I know I love that kind of thing. It just, allows me to get on with stuff. And I was really good at it because I could go into details. I could find patterns really well. I could kind of understand where challenges existed and kind of bring people together to say, well, actually, that issue is happening because of this and this, and how can we fix it? Whereas this one was a completely different kind of challenge. Anyway, stuck it out because I had a great mentor there. And again, I realized there are patterns with people as well, and with building a team. And it kind of taught me to not do everything for everyone, but actually step back and kind of let them do it, try a little bit, let them fail, and coach them into doing it in a different way. So getting them to kind of find the answers themselves rather than giving them all the answers every single time. So again, that's one of the reasons why I put that as one of my pivots over there. I did a lot of different roles. If you go onto my LinkedIn career, you'll find between Dig and Collinson, I've done, several. And like Lavina mentioned, I worked for a consultancy company called ScottLogic. Absolutely loved it over there. I think that's probably the record number of interviews where I was hiring testers. Do you remember, Labs? We kind of did up maybe, I think my record was 6 a day or something like that,
Yes.
including phone
Yeah.
interviews, personal interviews, and all of that. But that's all we did. We just was like rounds and rounds of interviews. One of the things I do like about ScottLogic is that they had a very pristine mechanism for whittling out, so we had 3 rounds of interviews over there. And the first one was you read the CV. If you like that, you basically make a quick 15-minute phone call. And there was a mind map set of questions. You explore like 2 or 3 different areas. And you kind of then make notes of what you've explored, put it onto the system, this HR or recruitment system, which then gives pointers to the first round interviewers on which areas they have to explore further. There were set patterns, and there were 4 key areas that you had to score on. The other thing I liked about ScottLogic, very data driven, right? What they did is you have to score independently. There were always 2 or more interviewers. Each person had to score, and then you kind of reveal your score. And if it's kind of wildly out, it's a little bit like Fibonacci series, right? When you're doing your poker planning, you say, well, hang on a second, I scored 4. How did you score a 1? Did I miss something? Or, what's going on over there? And we would then kind of talk about exactly why we scored the person what we scored. And then we kind of agree or disagree, and then kind of come to the right. Okay, I agree with that. Right, fine. I'm going to amend my score. Or actually, no, okay, it's maybe in the middle. Anyway, so that for me was a bit of a revelation, because I actually found that was a very great way of hiring people, and we got some real stars there because we very picky in how we selected candidates and also kind of retained them. Since then, and again before that and after that, I've done a lot of hiring, and it depends on the organization what they're looking for. So some organizations want to go very guns blazing and automation all the way. And again, it might be because they're at that level of maturity, they're looking for something like that. So you might find there's a whole demand of that. And other organizations don't need that. So in my current organization, Chaucer, for example, we don't have a lot of automation at the moment. A lot of it is done manually, but that is sufficient. They only do that kind of volume of work at the moment. It's very specialized. It's very old legacy systems. So the ROI in trying to automate something like that would just not justify itself. So I wouldn't recommend doing automation over there. But as we move to newer technology, going into APIs, for example, one of the things I've told my teams is anything like that, you have to automate. I'm sorry, there is just no negotiation on that. And also shifting left. So again, it's my whole career pivot again to from testing and away from testing was, well, how can I drill in quality earlier in the life cycle? Because staying in testing kind of, was brilliant. But then as I went into managerial roles, I thought, actually, we need to start early. We've got to kind of move left a bit. So when I moved into Collinson, which is again another great opportunity for me, I started looking at it, more from a quality assurance perspective and saying, well, how can we build in quality from the beginning? So I went in over there and, I started looking at different areas, looked at incident management. There were lots of issues over there, but then I uncovered there were a lot of incidents, and a lot of the changes that were being deployed, whether it was for the web or the backend systems, it took very long. B, every time they deployed something, there was an issue and had to be rolled back or patched. And I thought, okay, that's fundamentally wrong. What is going on over here? So then I had to do a deep dive and found out actually they were missing some fundamentals on branching, merging principles. So then I actually drove the session with the architects and the tech leads, and I said, look, this is what is happening when you guys are not following principles. You've got to put something in place and you've got to follow it. And then I introduced integration testing and said, actually, we had 3 different projects all touching and amending the same stack, and they were not following the branching merging rules, which is why they were kind of tripping over each other constantly. So I said, can't do this. You're going to have to follow integrations testing. And only if that passes, that build gets promoted. Otherwise, you're not going anywhere. Go and fix it. And it doesn't matter if the project manager is jumping up and down. It's not going into production. So those were kind of the reasons why I started saying, actually, I can do more. I want to do more. How do I build quality upfront? And that became the question that kind of kept me up most of the time when I was in Collinson. And because I kept doing that like annoyingly too many times, I think the CTO then said, actually, you're really good at this. Why don't you become the tech delivery director? Because I got teams scaling and moving in an agile fashion, mainly by collaborating with people within the organization. But I was quite convincing, I guess, because people wanted to hear what I had to say and followed me. And so that he basically said, well, you're doing the role anyway, might as well take the title. And that's how I kind of moved into delivery, actually formally at that time. But I've been a agile kind of evangelist, champion, whatever you want to call it, from the Chatley's Aid Foundation or CAF days. That's when I first got introduced to it, and then did a bit of Scrum mastering in both DIG and other places as well. And where I'm currently, Chaucer is a specialty insurance group. While I was transitioning from Collinson to Chaucer, again, I feel like I have to keep learning something, and I'd recently realized I'm neurodiverse, and that's probably where that comes from. So I went and did an executive MBA, and that was quite tough. I actually didn't realize how demanding that can be with a full-time job, having 2 kids. I mean, they were much bigger, but even then, it's quite hard work. But again, my whole intention was I had to persevere, because it was something I wanted to do, not just for myself, but it's almost like I have to be the right model for my kids. And I always kind of say, I have a boy and a girl, and I kind of do not differentiate between what they do at home or can't do at home or outside. So for me, whatever I ask my daughter to do, I ask my son to do as well. And the same thing. So, when I talk about diversity, again, I do talk about that also a lot. You might see some of my posts about it. It has to start at home. You have to kind of live your words, to kind of eat your own dog food in many ways. And that's kind of the reason I kind of said, actually, I want to show the kids that there is a way to keep learning. You don't stop learning ever. And it's about growth. It's about understanding, and enjoying what you do. And I have to admit that, again, has allowed me to realize and understand, a few more things. So now I'm very interested in transformation. And I like to understand more about how organizations, when they transform from what their current system or mechanism of delivery is into a new mechanism, how actually a cultural change has to be accompanying it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So for me, that's, and again, strategy itself, how technology is now inseparable from a business strategy, because almost every business is a digital business. There's very few businesses that are not digital. And so you can't now treat technology almost as, what the old word for it was IT, right? So you just tell IT and they'll fix your keyboard or your laptop. That's what technology was before. But now technology is your product or is your service or is underpinning your service, right? So you have to kind of go hand in hand with the business, which is why understanding the business strategy allows you to kind of say, well, actually, what do you want to do technology wise, or how can technology support the actual business itself? And that interests me. So again, my next step, not quite sure what it is, but it's definitely going to be in the transformation or kind of consultative space. But yeah, watch that space. So that's a little bit about my pivots and why I pivoted. I always find it very interesting when there is some additional way I can give value or give back. And that's why I've chosen the different options that came to me. Some of them were pure coincidence. Some of them I think I didn't kind of do anything for it, but I've learned now, I mean, again, through my MBA, that creating your brand awareness is super important when you get to your senior levels, because you might be doing a great job and your team lead or your supervisor might know about this. But if your people around you are not aware of this, you don't get that inorganic opportunities. And when there is a project that comes up, someone, if they know about you, they'll say, actually, when I spoke to this person, they said they were interested in this, and I've heard really great things about them. Why can't we get them on our team? You don't have that if you don't create your brand awareness. And again, it doesn't have to be all loud and yeah. But again, if you don't put yourself out there, people don't know you exist. So I've had to work a lot to kind of get my brand awareness up. And I hated public speaking before, although I can talk a lot. But public speaking was something I would shy away from. But now I tend to go for, speaking opportunities whenever I get it. It's for me, I just take it as a challenge. Happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn. I'm happy to share it on the chat. So if there's any other questions, if you don't want to ask openly, then feel free to ping me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Millie. This was really, really nice to see your transition and how it's helped you and grow professionally, and of course with your soft skills as well. So thank you so much. And we had questions coming whilst you were speaking. I'm not sure you noticed, but I'll start with the first question. So how to measure quality, Millie? How can the quality of software or functionality be improved?
Okay, so quality, it actually is, for me, it's synonymous to value to the business. So this is one thing I say to all of my stakeholders, right? There is no software in this world that is 100% bug-free. That's a myth, right? Even when Apollo went into space, it had bugs on it, right? But they were not major bugs. They were something that people could live with because the value was in sending it out sooner. And that's how you measure quality as well. To some extent, it's what is the purpose of that particular software that you're trying to deliver, and is it giving value? Because sometimes people will put things out there because it's for a test purpose. And again, if you've heard of Canary or blue-green kind of deployments, it may not be all perfect, but from that one small change what your market is actually willing to consume. And then you can say, it's this one, right? Let's now focus all of our energies and fix this one or build this out, fully. So again, you could have quality metrics, and a lot of people kind of tend to start quality metrics with defects. I would say if you are doing that, you look at escaped bugs rather than defects, raised per team or per stack, because that is, again, it allows you to kind of embed better quality controls early on in the team. I don't know if that actually answered your question, but we used to have multiple ways of measuring quality. A lot of it was to do with code coverage, but also escape bugs in combination. And kind of we were very dogmatic about understanding what actually the root cause was and trying to fix it. So again, it depends organization to organization. Some organizations are more lenient and have a lesser quality scale. Some of them are very, I mean, if you were in pharma, for example, you'd want to have it high, right? or you're in air traffic control, you want to have it high. So it all depends on the industry you're in.
Exactly. Perfect. Thank you. You've got another question. Is it possible to apply Lean Six Sigma methodology to the software industry?
Yes, of course. Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Another one we've got, would you change anything about your career, Millie? For example, I'm learning cybersecurity and I wished that I did this a long time ago.
It depends again. So, I mean, I've not done a lot of cyber. I have a good idea about certain things. I think I did a long time ago, I did a DDoS attack, but that was, I mean, it's 20 years ago now. So, Perl script and something like that. But now it's all kind of cobwebs. Again, I don't regret anything. I mean, at that point, I think as soon as I'd made the decision, I've had like moments of, ooh, did I do the right thing? Should I go back? And I had quite a few of those moments where I think, ooh, I've done this now. Did I do the right thing? And I've kind of like, I've stuck it out generally because I've always said, you've got to give it a couple of years before you actually, make up your mind whether it's for you or not, because some things it takes a little longer for you to see what benefits or what opportunities can come along. So I would say don't be too rash with any decision making. But when you made the decision, give it a little bit longer because you might uncover something else that might either add or detract from what your decision is.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then you've got another one saying, can you give some specific examples of applying Lean Six Sigma in the software industry? So the person, Emily, who asked you about Lean Six Sigma, she's asking you for an example of applying it.
Right. So the best way of saying it is, again, I'm using the agile methodology for this, and it's basically doing retros, right? You be again very pedantic about, well, what is it that we can make better, even if it is just one small thing. You pick that and you basically say, okay, where up the chain do we need to make this better? If it's increasing code coverage, you do that. Is it looking at how we change the design of the feature itself? Is it about sequencing what comes first, what comes second, because there might be a natural way of order of doing it, so it reduces effort for, I don't know, maybe the tester or the business users, because they also have to kind of look at certain things. So you can apply it in multiple ways, and I always start with a retro for the teams, and we used to then, I used to get all the Scrum Masters into a room and say, well, what were the themes of the different retros? Because I couldn't be in all of them. I'd only be in like one or two of them. And then I'd come out of it and then say, what were there any salient themes that we need to pick out and kind of introduce as principles? Do we need to kind of get additional tooling or additional training in place for people? But again, it then allows you to kind of review your process itself and say, well, okay, well, do I need to change my process now? Is this causing us too much issues, or do we need to tweak it? Can we automate it? Those are all questions we'd ask once we'd finished the retros. So we did a few things actually after that. We introduced a few different steps in the actual how we promote code from, say, the lower environment dev to SIT, for example, and what was the additional checks we added into SIT before we promoted it into UAT. We created what I call the analogy of release train. And again, this was something we had to do to enable the business to understand why they couldn't delay a release, because what normally would happen is one of the ops managers was very keen. I was like, oh no, but I need this has to happen now. And and you have to bundle it in, and the legacy stack takes a while to do the full regression testing. And I was like, no, it's missed the cutoff. So I'm like, you just have to wait 2 weeks because the train leaves every 2 weeks. So if you're on the platform with your suitcase in time when the train arrives, you can jump on it. But if you can't, then you just have to wait for the next train. It's not too long a wait. And again, being curious about exactly what that changes. It's not that if it was a major incident, we would fix it, right? Then everything kind of goes to, right, let's get this thing working up and again. But if a lot of the times people would kind of bloat things, a lot of the stakeholders tend to like to do that. They want to kind of make it a mountain. And you have to sit down and say, well, actually, what is it actually impacting? How many people, how many, team members? Does it have a workaround? Yes, it does. Okay, then you can wait. Did that answer your question, Emily? I don't know if it did, but if not, ping me again separately on LinkedIn. I can ask to give you more examples.
You're on mute, Lavina.
Oops, sorry. Emily did say great answer, Millie, so all good. I'm going to ask one last question, and then Millie, there's one question from Agatha, if you can answer it on the chat. So Steve Dunn is asking, great presentation, Millie. I'm interested in what you mentioned around Agile. I found the hardest thing is to get senior management to buy in to it. Any tips?
Right, I think Agile it sells itself, doesn't it? So all we did, and I say all we did, so it did take a lot of cajoling. It did take a lot of influencing people. And again, these are some of the tools you need to start sharpening as you go up the ladder, right? With Agile, what we kind of started doing is we started doing demos and reviews, and we started measuring everything. When you measure things and you say, well, this is the velocity of the team to start with, and they say, I don't know, say they delivered 3 features, right? The velocity, now they've delivered 4 features, or, this is the story points. And you can kind of start tracking, are they getting better? Are they consistent? That's great, And then when I started doing that, actually the director said, this is fine. Can we scale this? And I said, yeah, okay, yeah, we can, but we need more people. We need more Scrum Masters, because we can't ask one Scrum Master to kind of look after 3 or 4 teams. That's just too much for one person. So we then had to add additional, it's like the economics cost of averages kind of goes down a bit, but then it goes up again when you increase, the number of people that have to be looked after. So, but again, making it transparent and measuring it. So then we started using story points as our measuring counter. So we basically said, generally, a feature would be like 30, 40 story points, depending on the average, more moderate complexity ones. We'd have bigger ones as well, and they would be like an epic. What we would then say is, okay, this is how we will do the building of things, and you can start looking at how your features are being delivered, or how, and it was all done pretty much in numbers, which, and make good charts, which again, people sitting up above, if they don't understand the exact feature, they understand the numbers, right? And you can kind of then say, actually, each story point on an average costs you this much, depending on how you're managing the resource and headcount. So that's what we did. We then converted story points to some extent to cost points, and said, well, if you want to kind of do more, roughly, to get another team, this is what it's going to cost you. So we were then able to have better conversations to kind of say, if you see value in this, we can do more of this, and this is how it would scale. So we were able to give a scale factor. We were able to kind of give how we would scale, how long it would, because again, when a new team is put in place, they're not productive immediately. So we had to kind of explain all of that as well. It takes 3 to 4 months for a team to become, productive in what they're doing and understand what the business does.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Steve actually said great answer. So that's been answered as well. So Millie, if I can ask you to answer Agatha's question on the chat, that would be really useful. And Andy has also put a, just for Agatha actually. And moving on, I'd like to call our final speaker for the day, Andy. And
Hi, everyone.
hello. He's part of the British Computer Society. So it would be really nice to hear from his perspective as well. But before we get Andy started, I'd just like to introduce him. So Andy is a QA test analyst at Loxam, and he's a diversity and inclusion officer as well, and editor of The Tester, which is a part of BCS community magazine. If you are a member or would like to become a member, you'll get access to The Tester magazine, and it's a yearly fee. So feel free to go onto the BCS website and become a member. There's a lot of knowledge in there. There's a lot for you to learn, take away with you, and a massive community. As some of you said, where to start from, I think BCS could be an opportunity for you. So over to you, Andy.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thanks everybody for coming today as well. And Millie, really, really good presentation and very, very interesting. So I'm going to share my story now. So can everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So I'm going to talk about my journey as a software tester and how I developed and how I got into being a software tester just almost between 10.5 years to 11 years now. So yep, so I'm just going to mention about my journey so far. So initially, after leaving school years and years ago, I studied IT at college as a college, learning things like programming, how different systems works, accounts, plus other things. I then went to Sheffield Hallam University and graduated over 20 years ago, and I learned a lot of things, including business analysis, different methodologies, including some of the waterfall methodologies like SSADM, as well as the rapid application development, pre-agile methodologies. At the university, where I studied at university, there was very, very little mentioned about testing, although I think it's a really vital part of developing software and ensuring that quality is in the software. So I did a lot of coding as well after university, HTML. And whilst at university, I was still learning things like Visual Basic back in the day, programming languages like C. I did an industrial placement year learning a language called Progress 4th Generation Language, which is used in a few companies here, but is more popular in places like Germany and the Netherlands. And after a few years of trying to find a graduate job and doing many different stints, I eventually landed a graduate role within a company called EDS, which was bought by Hewlett Packard in 2008. EDS was founded by Ross Perot back in the 60s. He actually ran for US president in 1992, but didn't succeed. So at EDS, I did a number of different roles, including a bit of software development, software testing, testing a ministry defense system, which was interesting. I also did software support, which I really quickly began to hate the role because I found it quite stagnant and not enough scope for development. I also did roles like project analyst roles as well, which I didn't mind. But at the time, I was being a software developer. I did some software development, but a lot of the time, some of the opportunities were quite limited there. I worked to prove myself as well, and I took the initiative by learning different courses, trying different things in my spare time. However, 11 years ago, I got hit with redundancy. I thought that I would, once joining EDS, I'd be pretty much in the company for a lot longer than what I was. So I was there for 8 years altogether. I believed I was going to be there for a lot longer, but I was hit with redundancy. That meant that I had to take stock of life and find out what I wanted to do. So I did a lot of taking stock of things, looking at what I wanted to do and how I could develop myself. So I started taking some online courses on different areas like HTML, a bit of web development, also looking at what jobs I wanted to do, what career paths I wanted to do as well. I visited an outplacement consultant who was really, really helpful and really really useful as well. So it helped me to get an idea of what I wanted to do. I started going to networking events and getting involved with the British Computer Society. So a guilty confession, I have been a member of the British Computer Society for almost 20 years, but I didn't actually get involved with the British Computer Society until 11 years ago. So I started going to more of the networking events organised by BCS, and I actually joined the South Yorkshire BCS Committee as Young Professionals Group representative, first of all. I went to a Ministry of Testing event up in Leeds back in November 2013. I was nervous as hell about visiting about going there because I just thought, what are people going to think of me? I'm going to feel like a complete fish out of water because I don't know as much of testing as other people, and I almost didn't go. But then I thought, you know what, stuff it. I'm going to go. I'm going to see what it's like. If I like it, if I enjoy it, I'll go again. But if not, I won't bother. But fortunately, I was welcomed as soon as I got there, and I heard some really, really interesting talks. So I started to go to more testing events around the Yorkshire area. I also started studying for the ISTQB qualification and spoke to some testers as well who were also being made redundant about how I could develop a career in testing. And I was kindly given books by one of the testers about the ISTQB exam, and started learning about that and how testing was and how I could develop a career. I also started volunteering as well in different areas of the BCS, including playing around testing a website which a colleague had developed to better hone my testing skills and raising bugs which I'd found as well whilst testing. So, and I also started testing different websites as well, and just having a play around with them to learn more about how the different web systems worked and how I could actually test them to sort of see what I could do to actually break the systems. After gaining the ISTQB qualification, I gained my first role up in Leeds as well at a geological company. I didn't know anything about geology whatsoever, but I showed enthusiasm for being a tester, and I was actually telling the interviewer that I would actually be interested to learn about geology and geophysics. And although I was with a team with people who'd got masters and some people had PhDs in geology and geophysics, I just thought it'd be interesting to learn as well. So I joined there and learned about the agile methodology and how agile sprints worked, and how we'd work as a team to sort of test the software after it had been developed, and attend sprint reviews and retrospect to see what we could do, what went well with each sprint, what could be improved, and what steps we were going to take. So that helped me to learn how the agile methodology could actually, like Scrum, could actually be useful in organizations. I also, in different jobs as well, have gained some experience in automation, as well as looking at where to use it. So I've used a few different tools within automation, including Catalon, Sahi Pro, and a geological software system which I was using to automate different processes as well, and understanding how that would work as well. That's an area I'm interested in developing more skills as well. So I am going to look at some different languages to sort of see how I can upskill in that area. I've also gained a lot of experience in regression testing as well, writing regression scripts to make sure that anybody within the business could look at the tests and run through them as well, making sure that they were easy even for a 5-year-old to understand. I also started becoming and I am now an advocate for exploratory testing. So exploratory testing is a really good skill to have in testing, where you can play around with the software and you can use sort of set timed periods to sort of see how you're going to explore how a different piece of software works. This is good because it can help uncover bugs which might be found in software which you may not have been covered by automated testing or manual testing. It's also good as well because you can learn more about the software, and it helps to include scripts which could be potential for regression testing and automation. I've also, during my testing career, in the different roles which I've done, gained experience of other types of testing, including mobile testing, where I'm testing different software from mobile phones, cross-browser testing, where I'm testing web-based software on different browsers like Google, Chrome, Firefox. And I found that there are a lot of bugs which were in Internet Explorer, which thankfully is not used much within organizations. It's no longer supported. But I've also done database testing where I've queried databases as well as doing a bit of API testing using Swagger. I'm starting to learn a bit about Postman now as well, which I'm really enjoying. So I'm also looking at developing other areas of testing, including accessibility testing and security testing. So what I like about testing is that the world is your oyster, really. So you can evolve your career how you want to. So if you want to get into penetration testing or security testing, there are some really good resources and organizations and groups that can help you as well. With testing as well, I also started gaining experience of public speaking. So I started speaking at different universities about how to develop a career, different university students. And then I thought, hang on a minute, I'm really enjoying public speaking. So I started doing talks about software testing and how to think like a tester, which was good. And I've branched out into other areas, including neurodiversity, becoming an ally for women in tech, as well as mental health. So to get started in testing, I would highly recommend attend different networking events. So there are some really good ones around the UK. So I attend a lot of VCS events, which are useful to learn about different technologies, how people develop their careers, a different part of the industry as well, but also to learn more about to learn more as well and learn from other people. So the BCS has some really good events as well, both nationwide and online. I've spoken at different conferences, including the software testing specialist group in software testing SIGIS conference last year, as well as other areas, including Cyber Women Group CIC, which I did a talk for them with Lisa Ventura MBE back in early this month. But networking with other people, speak to other people, get to sort of know who's good at what areas as well, and learn from them as well. So networking is also good as well, because it helps to get your name out there. And sometimes recruiters can actually attend the events as well, so they're really good. So I'd also recommend other networking events groups, including the Ministry of Testing, which has different branches up and down the UK. Gabby Trotter, who is part of Ministry of Testing Manchester, hosts some really good events. And Gabby, who did her talk earlier, she actually got me one of my roles, which I really enjoyed doing just over 6 years ago as well. So you never know where your next role could be. So networking is good. Even if you're not good at networking or a bit nervous, speak to a few people as well, or attend some events online like this as well, where you can learn more about how you can develop your career. Also, learning about different areas of software testing and learning what the current trends are as well, and how you can be a better tester. So there's a lot of really good resources as well online as well, and there's some really good books in the area. If you're interested in automation testing, there was a really good book co-written by Doc Graham, who is a fantastic automation tester who has spent over a good while from her career automating different software as well. So it's a book which she's co-authored about automation testing, and that's really good read. Also, as well, be curious, play around with different websites, mobile apps, the different systems. Ask yourself, how can you break this piece of software? If you go to Amazon, can I order a product and put a negative value on it? Or can I or if I try to if I try to commit, if I try to sort of confirm an order, can I try and empty my basket afterwards, or can is the basket already emptied as well? So have a play around, ask questions as well as to what the software should do. Some websites, if you actually let them know if you found any bugs with the software by playing around the website, they will actually pay you a reasonable amount of money because you found the bug, especially if it's a really critical or a high severity bug as well. And some organizations do let people sort of freely test their products as well to see how it works as well. So explore. Also as well, it's worth finding people who are really good in their fields in software testing. You can also reach out for people to help mentor you as well to get started. So I've mentored and I'm currently mentoring some professionals as well who are looking to learn more about software testing. So I'll give them advice about how to test, as well as areas in which they can develop. So, and I also ask people as well how I can develop in a specific skill. For example, security testing, automation testing, how I can learn, where's best to learn a skill like Playwright or Python, if you like coding. I'm also going to mention about allyship and testing because that is really important. So as well as a diversity and inclusion officer within the British Computer Society for the South Yorkshire BCS branch and the editor of a tester, I've also been passionate about allyship and making sure that the tech industry, as well as testing, is as diverse and inclusive as possible. So Gabby mentioned about unconscious bias, and so did Millie. And I'm going to say as well, unconscious bias is not good because people can have predetermined views about people from different backgrounds as well. So we need to eliminate unconscious bias. For example, I'm neurodiverse, and I don't want the bias of, oh, it will take too long. It will take too long for Andy to learn the job. It will take him a while, so we won't progress him in that area. That needs to stop, and we need to make sure that everybody has a chance to develop how they wish. As well, celebrating people from all walks of life who've developed careers in testing in the tech industry. So in testing, you've got some really good role models, including Millie, Lavina, people like Nicola Martin, who is the chair of SIGIST. She's developed a really good career in software testing, as well as other software testers like Gwen Diagram, Mike Harris, who writes a really good blog about testing and if you want and about why quality is important. But and Jonathan Wright as well, who is a tester. He does a lot of testing talks on AI around the world, and he is a tester who I also respect as well. Mentoring people within the different roles as well. So mentoring is important as well to help nurture future talent and encourage people to develop their futures in testing. So and if you find and if there's people joining your organization, you can help to mentor them as well as outside as well, to help give them guidance as to how they can develop their career as a tester. Decisions about making change should not just be from the top down, so it should not just be from the managers saying we'll make these decisions, we'll include diversity and inclusion in our agenda and stuff. It can also be from the bottom up as well. Since I got involved with the BCS 11 years ago, I've advocated for female STEM progression, encouraging more women to tech roles and to testing as well. And I've also shown that I've also sort of want to sort of make the testing industry as well as BCS more inclusive. I don't want the tech industry or testing to be like a man's job or a job for the lads. I worked in a company once where it was mainly all males and the culture was not that good. People didn't think the same. People thought the same things. They didn't have any diversity in how we should test or how we should develop software, which can lead to stagnation as well. And it was just not a good environment to be in. I've worked in environments where you've had people from all walks of life, people who are neurodiverse, people from different minority backgrounds, people from the LGBTQIA+ community. And they're one of the best environments I worked in because everybody had different ways of testing stuff, different ways of developing software as well. It was also interesting to learn about how different people thought and how different people would test things as well. So speaking from the bottom up, if you've got an idea, say it. Your voice can change the world, and it can change things for the better. And it could also make the difference between the testing industry and people joining an organisation or not. When I first started encouraging women into developing tech roles, I had some backlash because I was told just leave it for women to encourage women to get involved with the tech industry and testing. I disagreed. I thought, no, I'm doing it because it's right. I'm doing it because I want to see a diverse community. I want to see a community where we can all learn from each other and grow, not one which is going to stay stagnant. And again, speak up if things aren't right. So if you're hearing language or a culture which is which is a bit discriminatory or harassing, speak up and call it out. It's not right. We should be encouraged. We should make our industry, the testing more inclusive or more accessible for people. And with an inclusive environment, everybody wins. People want to join your organisation. It inspires other people to get involved. Diversity in testing leads to more coverage of a software system. It allows new areas of software testing to be considered in your organisations as well, and it's going to make your product that much better. So allyship is everyone's responsibility. So there's different ways in which we can promote diversity in testing. So having different role models as well with testing is really good. Is really good as well, and inspiring, and it inspires other people to consider careers in testing, as well as other areas like cybersecurity or development as well. So having role models and celebrating those role models is really good. Is a really good way. I'm with the Tester magazine, which I started, which I took reins over almost 5 years ago. I deliberately wanted the magazine to be a magazine which was inclusive and inspired everybody to get involved. I'm happy for people I'm happy for anybody to to write an article for a future edition of a tester, from anybody who's day one as being a tester to somebody who may think about being a tester to people who have developed tester for 30, 40 years. And I wanted to make sure that we celebrated people everywhere, not just those who are high up the career ladder. And making sure that the environment as well is a safe environment where people can raise concerns, speak up, or ask questions as well, or if they're finding things a little tricky, to make sure that they're understood and valued. Making sure that with your practices as well in diversity that you're transparent, and that your message is open and it's clear and it's a welcoming one. Treating your colleagues fairly as well, and making sure that there's no room for unconscious bias, and making sure that different needs are taken into account. So I myself am neurodiverse, and sometimes I may need a bit more time to test specific software from other people. However, with that, I'll compensate, because I'll find sort of things or find areas which may have been overlooked by other people. So making sure that people are treated fairly, and a good organisation will take these things into account, even if you're a parent and need to arrange childcare. A good company would take these things into account and accommodate for you. And making sure that opportunities for development and growth are equal and fair for everybody as well, and how they want to develop. So somebody who wants to develop as a pen tester from testing as well is given that opportunity and given access to avenues where they can develop those skills. And making sure that you have a really, really welcoming company culture. So a bad company culture where I worked before was mainly male dominated environment, where it was laddish jokes, laddish behaviour, and they treated every employee as a one size fits all business. Whereas one of the best companies I worked for had a culture where it encouraged creativity, and the room was planned so it encouraged creativity, and people from all walks of life were encouraged to bring ideas to meetings of how they could make the software, how they could make the processes even better. And as a result, morale was really high. People actually enjoyed working for the organisation, and actually looked forward to the next day at work, as I did. So making sure your company culture is one that's diverse, one that's encourages people, and it attracts other people to join the business as well. So I'm going to mention briefly as well about mental health, as that's another area which I'm passionate about as well. So in mental health, in some organisations, it can be a little, some places can be a little fast paced, because of the rapid changes of software, and there can be the pressure to get things completed on time and to deadlines as well. However, there are ways in which we can manage that as well. Also, as well, with testing, a lot of the responsibilities, in my experience, has fallen on the testers as well, to make sure that the quality of the software is decent, that it's actually fit to be released, and not just, oh, let's just do it, let's just release something and hope for the best. That's not the way to develop, test and deploy software. And a lot of the time, some people, including myself, have imposter syndrome as well. A lot of the time, I feel like I can be a complete fraud in my industry, because there's so many people who are better than me as a tester, and I felt I'm a fraud. I'm not as good as a lot of people, and I still think, and I have felt like that even this year as well. Although at the end of the day, every tester adds something to the table. No two testers are the same, because each of us have a fixed mindset. there is sometimes there can be the pressure of completing software to a high standard, and making sure that when you're doing regression testing or other kinds of testing that you have a high coverage as well, which I aim to do anyway. I mean, one example was trying to regression test a whole software system in 4 days, and although it was challenging and we've just given a few days notice to do it, we managed to do that. However, fortunately, there are ways in which we as testers can manage your mental health. So upskilling is one area within testing where you can help your testers to learn different skills to help them manage things. For example, automation testing as well, where you could automate specific parts of the testing that you're doing to speed up the process of running tests or regression testing. With automation though as well, it's best to automate where it's actually going to add value and save time. But upskilling, learning different skills, including security testing, API testing, accessibility testing, it helps to give us testers give you a sense of purpose as well, and shows that your employees do care about you and that you are valued. Making sure as well that you have a balance of the work that you're doing as well and the workload. So making sure that if you're working on an agile sprint as well, that you have a fair balance as well, and your workload is not too much. I once had a workload which covered out 3 weeks of testing in 1 week. I tried it for a while, but then I found it was getting on top of me. So I spoke to my manager, explained the situation, that it was getting difficult. He was actually very understanding and actually worked with me to help manage my workload better as well, so that I was better able to manage my workloads better and get more things completed within reasonable timescales as well. So having that conversation did help. I've also found as well that collaborating with other people within the business, other testers, software developers, business analysts, product analysts, scrum masters, is also good for managing your mental health, discussing your concerns as well, so that at least you can all work together to make sure that you're testing software within reasonable workloads as well. And making sure as well that you reach out if you need to for help. I've had mild mental health issues, and I still do now, but I found that reaching out to a colleague or a friend helps a considerable amount as well. It helps you to share your story, share your concerns, helps you to sort of see how things can get better. And sometimes, just even if you don't always have an answer, talking to somebody helps, and share and having somebody listen can make a world of difference as well. When I got made redundant at Hewlett Packard almost 11 years ago, I tried to bottle things up, and I tried to be so strong. It took a friend to calm me down and help me realise that I wasn't on my own, for me to help see that things could get better. And if any of you here are finding things a little difficult as well, please reach out. Please talk to somebody. You are valued. So now I'm going to conclude with the fact that with testing, you can shape your career how you want to. I'd strongly suggest networking and learning about testing. So you've got the Ministry of Testing, which has some really good resources. You've also got the Test Tribe as well, which has some really good resources and courses as well. You've also got courses on places like Udemy and the Test Automation University, which Gabby mentioned earlier in the talk as well. I'd also suggest playing around with software systems as well, and seeing how they work, and speaking to and connecting to other people on LinkedIn. So Lavina is a really, really good advocate, good tester for accessibility testing, as well as AD Stokes, who is involved with Ministry of Testing. Other testers as well. There's Diagram, who's really good. So there are a few people I'd recommend connecting to, but also people like Mike Harris, Beth Probert, and Nicola Martin as well. Also, really fantastic testers, and connect to Millie as well, because Millie, you're awesome. So I hope you found the presentation useful. I've got a link to the Tester Online magazine, which I write, and I've included it in the chat as well. So if anybody wants to write an article for the Tester or wants to be interviewed for the Test, a future edition of the for Tester Online magazine, please let me know. And here's my address on LinkedIn as well. So I hope you've all enjoyed my talk, and I hope it's helped in some way.
Thank you so much, Andy. That was really useful. Different
you.
topics, of course, compared to Gabby and Millie. Topics that are equally important, and just shows that the range of the world that a tester goes through. So thank you so much. There are some questions here.
Yeah, sure.
So we've got one from Agatha. You mentioned choosing between Playwright and Python. Do you think that automated testers should familiarize themselves with as many automation tools as possible? Will mastering one specific tool be limiting when trying to expand your career?
Good question. Very good question. And I hope I'm going to answer it as best as I can. So my perspective is I myself, I learned a bit. I've learned a bit about Python as well. So, and I'm intending to learn more about it as well. I'd also learn Playwright as well. So, at least that way you can have an understanding of both the languages, how the different languages work as well. Different how the different languages would work as well. I'd also look at other tools like Selenium and Cucumber as well, to get a familiarization of them. I'd start with a couple of tools though as well, so that you're not too overloaded with them as well, and understandably, but I'd look at different things like sort of Python. I'd also look to see sort of what value automation can actually bring as well, and how automation can actually benefit your business as well. As automation's good, but a lot of businesses seem to think it's like riding a unicorn and it's going to solve all your testing problems. It won't. It will add you problems as long as you've got an understanding of how automation is useful and what it can be used for as well. And learning languages like Selenium, Python, and Playwright will help you with it. So I'd say learn a few of the languages anyway, and at least you've got some options to go with as well. And make sure as well that you've got an automation testing strategy as well, and looking at which areas you're going to develop and what the benefit that's going to bring, and looking at what return on investment automation is going to be, because it's not going to be a do once and then forget about it. It's going to be a good automation system will be one which you'll be working on sort of continuously, like with software testing and software development. So your investment is going to be a lot to begin with, but over time, once you've got a good solid automation strategy in place, it will pay dividends in long term. So I hope that's helped with your question.
Thank you so much, Andy. And
No
then
problem.
another question from Damo.
Okay.
Great talk. I agree with you about unconscious bias. As you know, I have DLD and I have faced issues with some companies regarding promotion due to having the disorder. Here's the main question. What are your thoughts about AI? Do you think that will harm the work of testers?
Good question, Damo, and thank you for coming to my talk as well. And I hope you've enjoyed it. So I hope you've enjoyed it as well. So with AI, I think with AI, I'm going to answer it. I'm going to answer this as best as I can as well. So I think with AI, although it may be able to help with some areas of testing, like automation, it's no substitute for actually having a manual tester who understands the software, understands the system, and understands the business. So I read an article last week as well about the PayPal system having issues because, from my understanding, and anybody here can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but that relied a lot on automation as well. So there wasn't much manual testing on there, and they found bugs which could have been found with automation testing. Automation testing and AI are good for testing some areas, but manual testing, exploratory testing is also equally important. And I think AI, it can do some good because it can help automate and speed up some of the work of testers, but at the same time as well, it's knowing how to use it properly and having a balance between AI and automation, manual exploratory testing, plus other kinds of testing to actually make sure your product is of the best quality. I don't think, if done right, it's going to harm the work of testers. And I've not really played around with AI myself as well, because with AI, I can see the benefits, but I also think that people need to sort of think for themselves, and think and think about how AI can be useful, not just rely on it as a silver bullet or the answer to all your testing problems. And I think as well, a lot of AI is actually machine learning as well. So the driverless cars of Google, artificial intelligence systems, that's mainly based on machine learning. So I don't believe it's going to be a complete substitute for testers. So it's not going to completely replace testers at all. Besides, with different systems, I'd rather people I'd rather sort of, if I was ordering something or contacting the bank, sometimes I'd rather speak to a human rather than an AI robot. So and with testing as well, sometimes I think having an understanding of a system yourself, and not relying on AI is key as well, but making sure you use it as and where you see fit, and that's going to take time. So I hope Dame, I hope that's answered your question. And happy to talk to you afterwards as well, offline as well if you want to.
Thank you so much, Andy. And I think that calls me to the end of all the questions. I think, Andy, people are asking for a link of your LinkedIn profile. Could you please put that on the chat?
Of course, yeah. I'm just going to get it. I'm just going to put my LinkedIn thing now. I'm just going to put my LinkedIn profile now. So
Yeah.
I mean, how did you? I mean, I hope what I've said's been helpful, and I hope you've all really enjoyed it so far.
Yes, it was really, really helpful. As I said, it gives a good perspective. We had some recruitment information, we had some career information, we had some information about career and other things to bear in mind. So it's everyone's story is different. Every tester is different, like one of the members here mentioned. They're all beautiful in their own way. In my opinion, we have different ways of thinking. We are very curious, and I hope all of you who listened in today gained a lot of insights. and we'll share it with your team and other people you could support with as well. I've added a link to all the testing conferences that happen around the world. Some of them are free, some of them have a small fee if it's online, some of them are in person. I would really, really welcome you to have a look at that website and actually attend a conference, because as many of you were thinking about your branding, when we attend these kind of events, we learn what our branding is as well. So definitely look into that link, and we are connected on LinkedIn. So any questions you have to me, Andy, Millie, or Gabby, feel free to reach out to them. I hope you enjoyed today's session. And if you want more sessions like this, please give us some feedback or put it on LinkedIn to us. We'd be more than happy to organize such things for all of you and your support. Thank you so much, and good night.